In every age of human history, there are conflicts that become more than just wars over land, politics, or religion. They evolve into living symbols of how power operates, how control is maintained, and how human beings wrestle with the eternal tension between justice and dominance. The Palestine and Israel conflict is one of those examples. It is a mirror, not only for nations, but for individuals. It shows us the illusions of power, the fragility of control, and the dangers of allowing emotions to overrule wisdom. And if we look closely, through the lens of Stoic philosophy, this conflict does not just tell us about states and leaders, it tells us about ourselves, about how we lead our own lives, and how we govern the wars within our own minds. CTA after hook, before we go deeper, let me ask you, do you believe true power comes from dominating others, or mastering yourself? Drop your answer in the comments, because this discussion is not just about politics, it's about your own life. Today's events show the world once again how fragile and shifting the balance of power is. We see leaders like Donald Trump, who during his campaign promised swift resolutions, now pressing Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu with peace frameworks that keep collapsing before they take form. We see tanks moving deeper into Gaza even as negotiations promise ceasefires. We see Arab states hesitate, caught between alliance and resistance. And we see the human cost, the lives caught in the storm of decisions made by men who speak of control but are themselves controlled by fear, ambition, and political survival. What does Stoicism teach us here? That external control is an illusion. You may subdue an enemy for a season, you may sign agreements and declare victory, but if your soul is not governed by reason, then you are at war forever. The Stoics taught that the only true power a man, or a nation, can hold is mastery of what is within his control, his thoughts, his choices, his virtues. Yet in this conflict we see the opposite. Leaders grasping for dominance, soldiers pushing borders, diplomats drafting plans, all while the deeper causes remain untouched. It mirrors our own lives. How often do we, like these nations, try to control others, force outcomes, or impose our will, instead of controlling ourselves? How often do we lose peace in the pursuit of victory? Think about it. Israel, backed by allies, believes security comes from the total dismantling of Hamas. Palestinians, seeking recognition, believe justice lies in resisting occupation. Trump steps in with a 21-point plan, attempting to bridge the unbridgeable. Each actor believes power lies in reshaping the outside world. But the Stoic lens asks, what if power is not in reshaping the external, but in governing the internal? What if the true battle is not tanks in Gaza or signatures in Washington, but the war inside the minds of men, where ego, pride, and anger continue to reign? Now pause for a moment and reflect on yourself. In your daily battles, arguments with family, struggles in business, conflicts with friends, are you seeking to dominate or to discipline yourself? Because the truth is, the lessons of Gaza and Jerusalem are also the lessons of your household and your heart. The desire to control others always leads to resistance. But the discipline to control yourself leads to peace. Do you see that connection? Comment below, have you ever lost peace because you tried to control something outside your reach? The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, wrote during times of war. They too saw nations rise and fall, emperors plotting conquest, armies marching across continents. But Marcus warned himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Compare this to today, where leaders believe strength comes from handshakes on the White House lawn or tanks rolling through Gaza streets. The ancient wisdom cuts deeper. All those external maneuvers may shift the map, but they cannot end the unrest until inner mastery is achieved. And here lies the paradox, control is weakest where it is most imposed. Israel can advance tanks, but not guarantee lasting peace. Hamas can resist, but not ensure freedom. America can draft frameworks, but not compel agreement. In your own life, you can force a friend, a partner, or an employee, but if you do not win their mind and respect, your control is brittle. Stoicism teaches us, strength imposed by force is fragile, but strength cultivated through virtue is unbreakable. So ask yourself, in your life, do you rely on force, manipulation, or pressure to maintain control? Or do you rely on wisdom, patience, and discipline? Comment your thoughts, because this is where philosophy meets reality, and where nations mirror individuals. When we observe the unfolding events, the illusion of permanence becomes striking. Trump presents a 21-point peace plan, Netanyahu listens but hesitates, Arab states weigh their options, and yet history repeats itself. Promises rise and collapse like sandcastles against the tide. This reveals one of the deepest Stoic lessons: do not place your hopes on outcomes outside your control. The US may declare a framework for peace, but Israel doubts, Hamas resists, and the cycle persists. How many times in your life have you experienced the same? You crafted the perfect plan, spoke with the best intentions, only for circumstances, or people, to unravel it before your eyes. The Stoics remind us that disappointment only comes when we attach ourselves to outcomes we cannot command. We can control our effort, our character, our choices, but never the final result. This is where the wisdom of Epictetus strikes like a hammer: when you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. Nations fight, leaders argue, enemies blame one another, but the real disease remains untreated: the inability to govern the self. Netanyahu declares he will wipe out Hamas, but can he wipe out anger, vengeance, and fear within his own heart? Trump promises to broker peace, but can he master his own pride, his desire to prove himself before the world? Each player focuses outward, but Stoicism says, the man who has conquered himself has already conquered the world. Reflect on this personally: how often do you fight external wars while neglecting the battles inside? Isn't it true that most of your pain has come not from what others did, but from how you chose to respond? And this leads to another timeless truth about power. Power that depends on the submission of others is always unstable. Israel's tanks may clear Gaza today, but resentment will return tomorrow. Agreements signed under pressure may hold for weeks, but distrust will eventually resurface. The same principle governs human relationships. A parent who controls their child through fear never truly earns respect. A boss who rules employees with threats gains obedience but not loyalty. A man or woman who manipulates a partner may win the moment but will never build lasting love. Stoic wisdom shatters this illusion: real power is not imposed, it is earned through virtue, through self-command, through the ability to remain calm when the world is chaos. Ask yourself this: are you living in a way that builds stable power through character, or fragile power through control? When you argue with someone, do you impose your will, or do you lead with reason and patience? When circumstances go against you, do you collapse in rage, or do you discipline your mind to adapt? The Palestine and Israel conflict is not only a war of nations, it is a living parable about the dangers of pursuing power without wisdom. Comment below: what do you think? Is it better to seek control over others or mastery over yourself? Consider the symbolism of Gaza City today. Tanks rolling into narrow streets, hostages held in hidden chambers, and leaders meeting in luxurious halls thousands of miles away. It is a picture of our own divided selves. On one side, brute force tries to crush resistance. On the other side, the quiet voice of reason seeks dialogue. But without Stoic discipline, the louder side, the side of force, usually wins, at least for a while. And yet, history shows us, force never sustains itself. The Roman Empire conquered much of the known world, but it collapsed not because enemies were stronger, but because it rotted from within. The same fate threatens every individual who believes domination is the key to survival. The question we must wrestle with is not, will Israel prevail, or will Hamas surrender, or will Trump close the deal, but something deeper: what does this conflict reveal about the human condition, about our hunger for control, about our blindness to wisdom? The Stoics would tell us that every external war is a reflection of the wars within human souls. If peace does not first exist in the heart of leaders, it will never exist on their maps. If peace does not exist in your own mind, no amount of external success, money, or recognition will calm you. You will always feel under siege. So I ask you, honestly, are you at peace with yourself right now? Or are you, like these nations, constantly fighting, grasping, demanding, insisting that the world bend to your will? Comment your answer. Your honesty might inspire someone else watching this video to face their own battles with courage and wisdom. At the root of this conflict lies one of the most dangerous forces known to mankind, ego. Netanyahu stands firm, declaring that he will not stop until Hamas is destroyed. Hamas declares it will resist until the last breath. Trump presents himself as the dealmaker, the man who can achieve what others failed to achieve. Ego sits on every throne, whispers in every negotiation, drives every tank. And what does Stoicism warn us about ego? That it is the greatest enemy of reason. Seneca wrote that the man who seeks glory becomes a slave to opinion. The same is true for nations. The pursuit of pride blinds leaders to the truth, and in this blindness, peace becomes impossible. Think of how often in your own life ego has kept you in conflict. A simple disagreement that could have ended with humility instead stretched into weeks of tension because pride would not yield. You had to prove you were right. You had to win. Isn't this the same story we are seeing now? Nations refuse compromise, not because compromise is impossible, but because ego cannot tolerate the appearance of weakness. Ask yourself, how many of your personal wars could have ended sooner if you had set aside your pride? Comment your answer. Your reflection might show others the cost of clinging to ego. The tanks in Gaza are not just weapons, they are symbols of the human tendency to escalate when ego is wounded. Israel pushes deeper into the city not only to dismantle Hamas but also to prove strength, to signal dominance to the world. This is what Marcus Aurelius warned against when he said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Yet here, both sides mirror each other, violence answered with violence, humiliation answered with humiliation. The cycle continues because ego does not know how to end a fight, only how to prolong it. And this is the mirror for our own lives. When we let ego rule, we never heal. We only escalate. Now let's turn to Trump's role in this. His peace plan is not just about ending bloodshed, it is also about proving his influence, showing the world that he alone can bring order. Yet history reminds us that when leaders act from ego rather than virtue, their plans, however elaborate, crumble. The Stoics would ask, is the pursuit of peace truly about virtue, or about self-image? And the same applies to you. When you seek reconciliation, is it because you value harmony, or because you want to appear wise? When you achieve something, is it for its own sake, or for how others will praise you? Ego contaminates even the noblest goals, turning them into weapons of pride. Here lies the Stoic challenge, to strip away the illusions of ego and ask, what remains when pride is silent? Epictetus said, if someone does wrong, the harm is to himself. If you can, take away from him the notion that he has done you wrong. Imagine if nations followed this. Imagine if, instead of retaliation, leaders sought to dissolve their own desire for revenge. Imagine if you did the same in your relationships. How many scars in your life would fade if you stopped feeding your ego's hunger for payback? This conflict also teaches us that pride has no limit. Netanyahu insists on total victory, Hamas insists on total resistance, America insists on being the arbiter of peace. Each side demands the impossible, because ego is never satisfied with half. And isn't this the same with us? We don't just want to win, we want to crush. We don't just want to be respected, we want to be adored. We don't just want success, we want others to admit we are superior. But Stoic wisdom warns, the man who is satisfied with little is free, and the man who is enslaved to ego is never free. Which one are you becoming? So pause right here and reflect. What war in your life is still burning because of ego? Is there a person you refuse to forgive, not because they are unworthy, but because your pride demands punishment? Is there a goal you cling to, not because it matters, but because you want to prove something to the world? Comment below, what's one example where ego kept you from peace? Your answer may inspire someone else to break their own cycle. When we look at this conflict through Stoic eyes, one truth screams louder than any headline: external control is an illusion. Israel pushes deeper into Gaza, convinced that military occupation will secure safety. Hamas holds hostages, convinced that resistance will secure dignity. The U.S. drafts peace plans, convinced that signatures and frameworks can secure stability. Yet history has already judged such attempts. Every war, every treaty, every political maneuver eventually collapses under the weight of human nature. Why? Because you can never control the will of another. You can only control yourself. The moment you build your power on the obedience of others, you have already planted the seed of future rebellion. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But notice how nations ignore this wisdom. They believe strength is found in tanks, in alliances, in declarations. Yet what happens? Tanks breed resistance. Alliances shift with the wind. Declarations vanish as soon as the next crisis arrives. And isn't this the same in your own life? You try to control your children, but they resist. You try to control your partner, but resentment grows. You try to control every detail of your career, only to find the market, the competition, and chance undo your plans. Comment below: have you ever lost peace because you tried to control something outside your reach? The Stoics were not naive. They did not deny that wars happen, that nations fight, that people betray. But they warned against staking your happiness on what lies beyond your command. Washington's 21-point plan may sound impressive, but no plan survives if the hearts of men remain unconquered by wisdom. And the same principle applies to your ambitions. You may plan your business, your relationships, your future with perfect precision, but if you have not mastered your own reactions, your own patience, your own discipline, the plan will crumble under pressure. External control fails when inner control is absent. Look at Netanyahu's insistence on continuing the fight until Hamas is completely dismantled. Is such control even possible? Even if structures fall, ideas live on. Even if Hamas dissolves, resentment remains. Even if land is occupied, identity cannot be erased. Control over others is always fragile, because it does not address the root, it only presses on the surface. This is why Stoic philosophy strikes so deeply: it bypasses the surface battles and demands we address the roots, the mind, the character, the passions. Until these are tamed, peace will never last, whether in Gaza or in your living room. So I ask you again, what are you trying to control right now that cannot truly be controlled? Is it a person? A situation? A future event that is beyond your command? What if, instead of exhausting yourself, you shifted your focus inward, to controlling your response, your choices, your virtues? This is the Stoic way. Comment below: what's one thing you need to let go of trying to control? The irony of the Palestine-Israel conflict is that both sides seek control but end up in chaos. And the irony of your life is that the harder you grasp, the more you lose. The man who tries to control his reputation becomes enslaved to opinion. The woman who tries to control love becomes consumed by insecurity. The leader who tries to control his people becomes hated by them. But the one who governs himself, his patience, his courage, his humility, he holds a power that no army, no enemy, no circumstance can ever take away. This is the lesson that Gaza, Jerusalem, and Washington unknowingly teach us: the pursuit of external control without inner mastery leads only to ruin. The Palestine and Israel conflict, when stripped of politics and history, is a mirror for the eternal human struggle, the battle between ego and wisdom, between external control and inner mastery. Nations fight, leaders boast, armies advance, but the Stoics would tell us, none of this is true power. True power is not found in land seized, in enemies crushed, or in treaties signed. True power is found in the stillness of a man who governs himself when all around him is chaos. True power is the courage to remain virtuous when provoked, the strength to remain calm when insulted, the wisdom to pursue justice without becoming consumed by vengeance. Trump's peace plan, Netanyahu's offensives, Hamas's resistance, these are all expressions of the same human tendency, to grasp at control over what cannot be controlled. And what happens? Peace slips away. Resentment grows. Chaos deepens. Isn't this the same with you? The more you demand from the world what it cannot give, the more restless you become. The more you try to force others to bend to your will, the more resistance you face. The Stoics give us the antidote: focus only on what is within your command, and let go of the rest. For in letting go, you are not weaker, you are freer. Marcus Aurelius lived in an empire filled with conflict, rebellion, and betrayal, yet he wrote words that shine brighter than any military victory: waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Can you see the depth of this? While nations argue about borders, you are called to set boundaries on your own desires. While leaders grasp for control, you are called to discipline your mind. While others lose themselves in ego, you are called to practice humility. This is what the conflict teaches you, not just about politics, but about the battlefield of your own soul. So here is the ultimate question: will you spend your life chasing control over others, or will you seize control over yourself? Will you remain enslaved to ego, or will you rise above it with wisdom? Comment below: what do you believe is the greatest form of power, external dominance or inner mastery? Your answer might be the spark that shifts someone else's perspective. The world may not find peace tomorrow. Tanks may still move, hostages may still be held, negotiations may still collapse. But you, right now, can find peace. You can step off the battlefield of pride and into the fortress of self-mastery. You can learn from the pain of nations and prevent the same chaos from ruling your heart. That is the choice Stoicism offers. That is the power you already hold. And if this message resonates with you, if you believe the wisdom of the ancients can help us navigate not only global conflicts but the wars inside our own lives, then join this community by subscribing. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let us learn from history together, and let us become stronger, not by controlling others, but by controlling ourselves. Because in the end, history will remember not who conquered land, but who conquered themselves.